Welcome to Girls Gone Wellness, Dr. Nadolsky.
Thanks for having me.
We're so excited to have you here with us today. We have covered topics like metabolic health, weight loss, GLP-1 medications in past episodes. But as you know, there is a lot of noise out there, especially in the wellness space. The medications especially are often framed as almost like an alternative to diet and lifestyle changes, as if the medication's the easy way out, when really these things don't have to be mutually exclusive.
That's right.
And so we wanted to bring you on because we genuinely love your work and you're a true expert in this field. So let's dive in. Are you ready to go?
Let's go.
Amazing. I also just want to say I love your Instagram bio, obesity lipid meme specialist. I feel like we need to add that into our Instagram bio too. I really love how you do bring some humor and lightness to the space. I think it is needed as well.
It's not for everybody. Some people get mad, and I'm like, you guys are taking everything too serious.
Yeah, for sure. Before we dive in, can you just give us an overview of how you got into medicine and then how you further specialized in obesity medicine?
Yeah, the gist is I was really interested in exercise and nutrition science to get better at being an athlete. My family was academic. Both of my uh, mom and dad were teachers. My dad was a biology teacher, chemistry teacher, and wrestling coach. My brother is 4 years ahead of me, was into academics and athletics as well. And I wanted to better myself at athletics. So I really got into nutrition and exercise science, got really good at sports, ended up being wrestling and playing football in college, first at Michigan State, then UNC Chapel Hill, and finished my career as their starting heavyweight wrestler, did pretty well. And when I went to med school, everybody's like, you're going to be a sports med doctor, big, ortho doctor. And I shadowed the ortho doctor and I was like, this is terrible. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do surgery. It just didn't interest me. I can't explain it other than I liked physiology more. And ultimately I wanted to help people get a fraction of my obsession for nutrition, exercise, science, and improve their overall quality of life as opposed to helping them bench press, you know, 25 more pounds or whatever, get a faster 40-yard dash or something like that. So it was cool to see people go from being sedentary and a pretty bad quality of life to just a fraction, a hair more, which has the biggest bang for the buck in terms of their life. So that's how I got into it. I started going to conferences. I always see the memories pop up, but it was 2010, like 15 years ago. And back then I had a strong weight bias. I didn't know because I was like, I need to figure out how to get people to just eat better. They're lazy and they must not have much discipline. And then you start learning about the biology of it. And still a lot of doctors have that weight. They still have the weight bias, but it wasn't until learning from other obesity doctors and then learning from my patients. I'm like, oh, there's a lot more to this. Apparently I had a strong weight bias. So that's why I don't even get mad at people that have the weight bias. I more empathize. I'm like, I understand, but you got to start understanding the biology of obesity and then all that comes with it. So that's kind of what led me here. The reason I got into telemedicine stuff though is our current system is so archaic in how we provide care. And I was like, you know what? This doesn't make sense for people to take a half day off work, take the bus to get 5 minutes of my time and then take the bus back. That's just so ridiculous. So we need to lower barriers, remove the middlemen that put a barrier in between the doctors and the patients. So that's what I'm doing.
That's amazing. I'm curious what your experience was with nutrition in medical school. Like at that point, was there nutrition classes? Like what was your education once you got to medical school in that field?
Yeah, everybody says, oh, doctors learn an hour of nutrition. Well, we had a whole block of it. So I don't know. Yeah, it's different at every single med school. It's not
Mm-hmm.
standardized. We had a good, strong, I thought we had a pretty good intro into it. The thing is, though, doctors tend to not be into it. So it's to me, it's more so the person that goes into medicine. And so I think we're seeing a big shift in the younger crowd is looking into lifestyle and they're seeking out that information. If you're going to med school to learn about nutrition, you're screwed anyway because it's there's so much more to learn.
Yeah.
But you should get a general base of knowledge. To me, it should be you get a base of knowledge, but every little bit that you learn uh, from pathophysiology and different systems of the body and different chronic diseases, there should be a component of here's the lifestyle that would help with that.
Yeah.
And then through training, like residency, which comes afterwards, it should be the same thing. It shouldn't just be like, all right, here's some nutrition, see you later, goodbye. It should be every component. Here's the base of the pyramid of treatment.
Mm-hmm.
Here's how you would implement it. Doctors don't even have the resources to do it, even if they knew how to do it. So it's a whole system failure.
Yeah, yeah. I know me and Vec actually just recently graduated from naturopathic medical school here in Toronto. So our education was kind of built in that similar way. Like we would learn about a disease, learn about the pathophys, learn about like the medications, supplements, nutrition, like it was all kind of built in. So that was really interesting with our education as well. I would also just love to know how you grew your presence on social media, like how you started making videos and all of those things.
Yeah, and you can go back a little bit, but basically, Facebook was what I started with back when I was in residency, back in like 2012 or something like that. Now, all I did was just like, oh, I saw a patient, I did this, and now they're walking more, and then they lost 5 pounds. Something. It was just very basic, not anything elaborate. And then that grew a following. I was like, okay, cool. And then Instagram kind of started getting bigger, and I shifted to that, and I started making like infographics, basically like I don't know, like my one of my first viral like meme infographic was showing regular peanut butter cups versus Justin's organic peanut butter cups. I'm like, look,
Mm-hmm.
they're pretty much the same thing. Like, yes, these ingredients are organic, but like it's candy.
Yeah.
Like,
Exactly.
let's not pretend it's anything else. Now,
Yeah.
people are like, but I like the Justin's better. Now, I do too. Don't get me wrong. I like it better. I
Fair.
think it tastes better. But and what actually inspired that was a patient of mine. It was 2014 or 2015. Said they can't lose any weight and they don't understand because they're eating everything organic. And I was like, well, what are you eating? And they described organic junk food, highly processed food. And I was like, and I was just looking at him going, holy cow, people don't understand this.
Right.
So I just I was like, yeah, I'm going to, I try not to make fun of the patient. I didn't say them, but I was like, look, organic junk food is still junk food. And I know people don't like that term junk food. We dichotomize food, blah, 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 blah. I get it. But like, it's candy, whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how I did. I started making infographics. And then actually a lot of the fitness world started making infographics. And that was like one of the big booms back in the fitness Instagram world because everybody else was just taking pictures of themselves of being jacked. And like that doesn't actually help anybody. It's kind of like, yeah, you kind of look cool and like people get inspired maybe. But it was more so, let's start giving out information.
Mm-hmm.
And so that started that. And then eventually I was like, this isn't even my personality. I'm very like jovial and like I like to be funny. So I'm like, I need to start doing something that aligns with that. And the whole meme culture was kind of new back then. I'm like, maybe I could do this. And so I look back at some of my memes. I'm like, those are terrible. But at the time they were kind of funny. So
Yeah.
like people like, and then I started getting better. You just start, now you just see a meme and like this could fit in this scenario. And then it's funny. And then now that because the new thing now is it's not like necessarily still picture memes. It's the reels or TikTok,
Yeah.
whatever you want to call it. You can use CapCut of a movie scenario. And so the ones actually that do really well are like with like RFK or something, and you put the because it's so politically charged right now. I don't
Yeah.
like doing it because people get so upset, and I'm like, I gotta turn my phone off because I don't think I can read these comments right now. But that's the gist
Mhm.
and then like the way you really grow, and I just haven't had time to do this consistently though, is you got to consistently give out really good information, and you just consistently do it. It's a rat race though, like you're on a hamster wheel, and if you want to do that for the rest of your life, you got to really enjoy it. So that's the gist, and I like giving out good information. And now that I have an online clinic, it's a business thing too, because
Yeah.
you want people to trust you, give out good stuff, and then they'll join your clinic. That's
Yeah.
the gist.
Mm-hmm, definitely. What I like about your social media is, yes, it's funny, it's enjoyable, but you give out information that sticks. And so for me, you had a post recently, and I think I've shared it with numerous people at this point. You said telling someone with obesity to just eat less is like telling someone with depression to just cheer up.
Yeah.
And that is such a good way of putting it, because there is this kind of idea that obesity is a choice, that it's a
Yeah.
reflection of poor willpower or lack of discipline. Or, like you said earlier, this idea that like you're just lazy, you just need to
Mm-hmm.
eat less, right? How do you respond to people when they come to you and they say that? Like with this whole, even just in the online space, when you see things that kind of allude to the fact that obesity is a choice, how do you respond to that?
Yeah, I mean, I see myself, younger myself of me
Mm-hmm.
in them. So like, I don't. Other people get really upset about. It's like, no, no, they don't really understand it. So then I go like, look, do you believe type 2 diabetes is a choice? And they might though. They might actually
Mm-hmm.
think
Mhm.
that. And I go, why do you think it's a choice? And then you start talking through it. And so you try to understand what they're thinking. So like, for example, they'll say it's a choice because it's obesity is just due to a caloric excess, a surplus, meaning they're eating more calories. I'm like, okay, what caused them? Did they choose to eat more? They're like, yeah, of course they chose to eat. I'm like, really? They know exactly how many calories that they have burned, and they know how many calories they're eating for that day, and they are looking at the two things and going, yep, I'm going to choose obesity this time. You really got to
Mhm.
start thinking when I then explain, like, what if the body is kind of nudging them to eat just a little bit more, 50, 100, 200 calories extra here and there? Is that a choice? Well, they know that uh, broccoli is better than French fries or whatever, or that like they shouldn't take a second portion. But why are they taking a second portion of that? Even if it's, let's say it's the most satiating healthy food that for that person, and they're trying to eat a better diet. Why did they eat a second helping of that?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't know, but they're choosing to do it. Like, well, maybe they're really hungry and their body's kind of pushing them. Or maybe it's the environment, maybe it's a combination. So then I don't get upset. I always like to know what they're thinking. But some people are like, but it's just it's a lifestyle choice. And I'm like, is it though? I don't know. Cardiovascular disease, is that a choice?
Mm-hmm.
If you it's all lifestyle related, just because it's lifestyle related doesn't mean it's a choice. What drove that lifestyle or those habits in the first place? And then you get a lot of people with obesity. They're like, of course it was a choice. I was just being lazy and eating bad. And I'm like, yeah, but why? Did you even
Mhm.
think about it? They're like, well, I go, it's really interesting to get their thought process because they've kind of internalized that whole bias as well. Anyway, it's a fun thought process to go through.
Yeah, no, it's super, super interesting. Can we talk about how like the brain regulates hunger, satiety, cravings, and the science behind this?
Yeah, we have a whole satiety system in our brain. It's our hypothalamus, and then there's uh, neurons downstream that really control our satiety and hunger. And that's a component of it, but there's also the component of the reward system of like wanting food. Like we all know this. You're full. You're full. You're literally satiated, but you can still eat whatever. Let's think of a Boston cream pie. I don't know why I'm thinking of something light, fluffy that's not high calorie. Whatever, chocolate mousse. I don't care when you're out to eat something like that. You're stuffed, but like, why can you do that? Well, our brain, and people talk about your second stomach. It's not your second stomach. It's literally your brain. Um, and that those things can get dysregulated with obesity. They've done these types of scans. It's not as hard science. It's because they have to do these types of scans to kind of see where the areas light up and all these different things, and then try to understand the inflammatory processes that are going on. And they got to use animal models because they can't just dissect a human, and then they actually have these really cool animal videos at the conferences where they put this little needle that has a light that stimulates certain areas of the brain, and they can turn it on and off. And when they turn it on, the rat starts just voraciously eating, and then they turn it off, and then they stop. And so, like,
Wow.
it's all sorts of cool things. And so you have to use animal models to kind of tease
Mm-hmm.
out these little mechanisms. But yeah, in humans, I mean, you can talk to people. They struggle their weight. They they sometimes are successful, so to speak. They respond to the diet and exercise in the short term. And then in the long term, they're just getting hungry and hungry. And they're like, I
Mhm.
swear I'm only eating 800 calories, but I'm not,
Mhm.
I'm gaining weight. And I'm like, that's physical. It's hard to talk to because it's like,
Yeah.
it's actually literally impossible to
Yeah.
do.
Mhm.
However, I believe you that your perceived effort is as high as you feel like you're eating that few of calories.
Mm.
And then mathematically, there are physicists out there that can actually calculate the mathematical increases in the amount of calorie that person wants is trying to take in. So really interesting stuff. But the gist is we have a complex system regulating our satiety, hunger, and those cravings and that reward system. And then it goes even further beyond that because have you guys talked about the food noise thing?
Yeah,
Mhm.
we're gonna get into that.
Yeah, well, I mean, just even thoughts about food. So it's not even hunger,
Yeah.
satiety, or cravings. It's even different. So that brings a
Mhm.
whole nother level to it.
Right.
Hmm.
Wow.
Definitely. Well, and the thing too is, we all kind of know how to lose weight
Yeah.
physiologically, right? Like we know stop eating so much or move your body more, like the classic things. And yet everybody's on a diet all the time because we're all struggling to get to that place. And so you have to ask yourself, like, is fullness, like actual physical fullness, enough? Because we have patients who, they're hitting their protein goals, they're hitting their fiber goals, and that's excellent. But they have this dial that's up and it's like yelling, like, I want more food.
Hmm.
And that's something that we have to talk about. It's not as easy as just simply eat less food, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So you can feel full, like your stomach feels full, and that's the mechanical stretching of your stomach.
Hmm.
But then the satiation, the satiety, where you feel like, oh, I don't need to eat anymore. That's another level. And then beyond that, then there's the reward, the whole
Mhm.
reward thing, and then there's the
Amazing.
food noise. So there's
Yeah.
multiple levels there. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it's much more complex than a lot of people lead on. Um, can someone with obesity realistically have their BMI return to kind of that normal number and sustain it there through lifestyle and diet alone? Or do you think that the combination of diet, lifestyle, and medications is necessary for people with obesity?
Yeah, no, it can be done. We all know these individuals. There's a whole registry with people that have done it and they maintain their weight loss. The problem is it's relatively rare. I'd say minority of people will be able to do it. Let's say 10 to
Yeah.
15 or so percent of people probably that go on to try it can actually do it. And when I say try it, and like they have to have like a pretty good support system to get it done. It's probably fewer than that try to do it on their own without any type of support system. So it can be done.
Hmm.
It's just not it's not common. And so people are always like, "Man, you're just a shill for these medicines." I'm like, "No, it's just reality. Like I'm not trying like I mean, I love diet and exercise. I love it so much. I love lifting weights.
Yep.
I love eating better foods, improving dietary patterns. Ideally, we wouldn't have to take drugs or get surgery or anything else. Like, I don't care. I don't make money from big pharma. I should. They offer me money. I don't take any money. But so people are always like, you got an incentive. I'm like, I'd make just as much money to if I just did the diet and exercise thing.
Mm.
So like, but the reality is, unfortunately, most people will not be, and it shows the biology of the whole thing.
Yeah. I like how you said 10 to 15% of people can actually get there because I think social media kind of says that, 90% of people can get there with diet and lifestyle alone. So I think just saying that can help people kind of put all of this into context for sure.
Yeah, and people will say, "Well, you're taking away hope from people." I'm like, I'm not taking away. These are just the statistics. Don't yell
Yeah.
at me. God, I didn't do anything. I'm
Yeah.
like, but by saying that you're going to perpetuate the and people won't be able to do it. They're just going to give up. I'm like, they've already given up because of the reality of what happened. So,
Yeah.
yeah, and the wrong thing to say is that everybody needs medicine and nobody can do it because I've seen some people do that. I'm like, okay, now you're just lying the other way. So
Right.
I don't
Right.
know.
Yeah. GLP-1 agonist medications have, of course, been around for a long time, but they've exploded in popularity in the last few years. With that, there's a lot of misinformation and maybe just like a slight exaggeration maybe of like the side effects and all of like the negative things that can come from them. So can you just explain for the listeners, how do these drugs work? Do they suppress appetite? Like, what is their function?
Yeah, they originally were approved in like 2005. The first one was called Byetta exenatide. It was a twice a day injection. Um, the way they came about, though, kind of interesting. In like the 50s or 60s, I never remember which one, but they were injecting people with glucose versus making them drink glucose. And what they found out is that the insulin went higher when they drank it. And so they're like, what's going on? There's some sort of, they call it the incretin effect, some intestinal hormone, intestine secretin. They were trying to come up with some name, called it incretin. And they didn't find out these incretins till later, 1980s. There's one called GIP, which we can talk about, but then it was GLP-1 uh, that they found that they thought would be a better drug target. And actually, the problem is our own GLP-1, glucagon-like peptide 1, is released from our intestines after we eat, but it's broken down within a minute or two very quickly by one of our enzymes. So like, okay, so like maybe we could boost it up somehow, whatever. Or we could find a way to give a GLP-1 that's not broken down as readily. So they found what this guy, John Inge, serendipitously found. I don't know if it's serendipity. I don't know if that's the right word, serendipity. He found out in Gila monsters. Gila monsters have, in their venom, they have this, a component that was about 40%, they call it homologous, so 40% similar to human GLP-1. And it doesn't get broken down as readily as our own. So that's how they made Byetta. So you'll see the fear mongering online that people are like, you're injecting Gila monster venom. And I'm like, whoa, hold on a second. It's not, you don't inject the venom. It's a component of it. And either way, that was the oldest one. You had to inject it twice a day. The newer ones are based off of human semaglutide specifically, where we can get into, is based off of human GLP-1. So what they do, these super smart scientists, they found ways to modify our own human GLP-1 to make it not get broken down. And so that's what they did. And they found a way to make it have a longer half-life, so it's sticking around in our body longer. And then the cooler thing is they've modified them, and I don't know if this was their intent originally, but it's possible some of them are getting into regions of our brain where they otherwise couldn't get to. And I don't know if this is because they're able to increase it into such levels that you can't get with own human GLP-1, but it then hits regions of the brain. And the way that works for weight loss specifically is that it hits receptors that are in the brain that have downstream effects on satiety and appetite in general. Now, the difference though is, there needs to be more studies on this, but there are older drugs that help people lose weight. There's something called phentermine, and there's a bunch of other ones. And people do have improved like weight loss with that, improved appetite. But the biggest thing people are noticing is that I talked about before, the food noise thing. People don't think about food as much. So these drugs not only increase satiety, they decrease hunger, and then they also seem to have an effect on this food noise, which again, people will be like, that's not a disease, it's not a thing. I'm like, I'm just describing what the patients tell me. They're trying to validate this whole idea of thoughts about food beyond just hunger and cravings and whatever. But the gist is these medicines help people eat fewer calories, and the weight loss is durable. That means it's not like, oh, people lose weight and they start regaining over a long period of time. Over 3-4 years, the weight seems to stay off. Appetite, some people say their appetite's coming back, but they maintain the weight despite that. It's kind of interesting stuff. So that's how they work. Again, there's the newest one is tirzepatide, which is not even new anymore. The first one was Mounjaro in 2022. It came out, which is, it's amazing. It's been that long. But that one combines two incretins, so they call it a twincretin, a co-receptor agonist. And what they did was they made a peptide that actually, it's not two different peptides. It's a peptide that hits both receptors, and those are two different incretins. Possibly makes it synergistic, possibly additive. Lots of different opinions on why it's better, but that one's by far the most powerful, fewer side effects, and people lose a lot of weight.
Okay.
Why do you think the rise in popularity of these drugs now? Is it because these newer ones come with the less side effects? Are they more
Yeah.
accessible?
Yeah, the first one for weight loss. So the first one for diabetes, type 2 diabetes was Byetta in 2005 or 6, and then in
Mm-hmm.
2009 it was Victoza, that was liraglutide. But Saxenda was the first one in 2014. That was a high dose of liraglutide, a once a day injection, around like 7 or 8% total body weight loss. It wasn't that great. It was super
Mm,
expensive, a lot of more nausea. You had to inject it once a day. Like,
right.
not great.
Mhm.
However, it was kind of cool. But I remember putting patients on it back, 10 years ago or whatever. It came out in 2014 ish. When it wasn't covered, I'm like, I'm not going to tell you to go spend $1,000. It's not even worth it for that. But it wasn't until Ozempic, which was approved for type 2 diabetes, it was in 2016 or 17, that then came out, and that only went up to 1 milligram of semaglutide. But a lot of us were using it off label at the time because we're like, okay, this is like, seems better tolerated than the Saxenda, and fewer side effects than the phentermine and those types of things.
Mhm.
Still expensive, but sometimes you get insurances to pay for it without type 2 diabetes. It didn't get popular though. It was only 1 milligram of semaglutide. When it really got popular though was when the first big trial for weight loss came out in 2021 for the Wegovy, which is the 2.4 milligrams of semaglutide. And that's like because the headlines were game changer,
Mm.
huge. We didn't have anything like this. It was now 15% total body weight loss. And if you think about
Mhm.
diet and exercise, average is somewhere around 5 or 6% with like intensive coaching and whatever over
Mhm.
the course of a year. Then
Mhm.
you get up to like the phentermine, Qsimia, it was phentermine with topiramate. That was around 10%. That's not bad, but it had side effects. It was a controlled medicine, not wildly used. A lot of people did use it, but not popular. And like the semaglutide at the Ozempic off label, probably somewhere around 9% total body weight loss at the time. It wasn't studied for obesity, but you can look back at the trial data.
Mhm.
But 15% for this step one trial, and it was big deal because at bariatric surgery is 30%. So now we have something right in between that's like, okay, we're not going from this 5 to 6% uh, lifestyle to then bariatric surgery, which is 30,
Mhm.
40%. Now we got something in between, 15%. That seems to be pretty well tolerated, and we can get into the side effects. So then then you started seeing people using the Ozempic really off label. If whatever it was, a few celebrities, you got the Elon Musks and whoever else talking about it. Boom, wildfire.
Yeah.
So that's essentially what happened. And then tirzepatide really just like accelerated it because tirzepatide's a little bit over 20% total body weight loss with
Wow.
fewer side effects than semaglutide. So it was like, oh wait, now we're starting to get up to like bariatric surgery kind of levels
Yeah.
in a pen. That's what did it. And then you get Hollywood talking about it. It's over.
Yeah.
That's a gist.
It's over. Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about dopamine because I know you mentioned it before, and I think this is so important and so interesting when it comes to this conversation. Um, Dopamine often wins over willpower, especially with sensory cues, like dessert menus on the table, eating in front of the TV, the smell of pizza, smell of cookies baking, all of those things. How do GLP-1s affect like the dopamine, this whole thing
Yeah,
in general?
it seems to dampen down. That's the whole reward system that we were
Mhm.
talking about before, the wanting of food and whatever else, gambling, I don't know, whatever, sex addiction, all sorts of things,
Mm-hmm.
alcohol, smoking. So the GLP-1s seem to dampen that whole system down. And so instead of just feeling satiety and whatever, it, helps with the cravings, helps with the wanting of something else. I have patients that are just like, wow, this in this scenario, I would go get a glass of go get a martini. I would go grab
Mhm.
my bottle of wine, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, I just have no wanting to do that. Amazing. And
Mm-hmm.
amazing. I made some stupid TikToks back in the day, just just basically going, hey, a patient said this. What do you all think? And just millions of people were like, yes, 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 that's me. And nobody was really talked about it. And so now it's, kind of everybody kind of knows about that effect. The problem is now this is something that I'm talking about now too, that not enough people are talking about, is that some people that it downregulates too much when they go to a higher dose. Um, and the way they describe is that now they don't enjoy you want people to still enjoy life without over enjoying certain things. That's the
Right.
gist. Like we just got to be a balance. You still want to enjoy your life
Mm-hmm.
without like over consuming. So some people I've seen an over dampening of that system. And I'm not a neurobiologist. I have to know about it, but I'm a clinician that specializes in this. So I just have to make sure I notice patterns in patients. That's the kind of the gist. But some patients will say now, like, yeah, I used to like going to the gym and now I don't really feel like it. I'm like, oh, that's not good because that defeats the
Oh.
whole purpose. Like,
Okay.
we want you to get healthier. And like we these now it's rare. It's not common enough
Mhm.
to that I'm seeing it enough.
Mhm.
Like, and patients are reaching out because I make these videos like, hey, I'm seeing this. Anybody else? And now they're reaching out. They didn't even know they had it. They thought it was seasonal affective disorder. We call it
Oh.
anhedonia, if you guys have learned about that.
Mhm.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
I just kind of say it's kind of like meh, like I don't know, kind of
Yeah.
indifferent. And it's
Wow.
not like you're like overtly depressed, like, oh, looks like rain. It's just kind of like, I don't feel like doing anything. and
Mm.
and I'm seeing it a lot more. So when you look at the tirzepatide trials, when you look at 10 and 15 milligrams they're called the Surmount trials. If anybody wants to look them up, you can go look at Surmount 1 if you want to. And you look at the 5 milligrams of tirzepatide is about equal to the high dose of Wegovy of 2.4 milligrams. So it's around 15% weight loss. So 5 milligrams of tirzepatide is pretty good. But the 10 and the 15 milligrams of tirzepatide, they get more around that 20 or so percent. And when you look at their curves of weight loss, they're not separated by much. The 15 ekes out of like a percent or so more of weight loss, maybe 2%. But like, when you start cranking up doses of things, you're not getting much more weight loss. You start getting more side effects.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So what I'm noticing is that some people on this super high dose of the tirzepatide, they're not losing any more weight. And now some of them are like, I don't feel like working out or doing anything anymore. I'm like, well,
Mhm.
that's not good. So I've been dropping them down, and actually a lot of them are breaking through their plateaus because they're still having that appetite suppression, but now they're feeling like they can go out and enjoy their life again. Really interesting stuff. If somebody's listening, they're like, oh my God, that sounds like me, talk to your doctor about it. But
Mhm.
that's
Mhm.
the gist. It works really well for the whole dopamine system, but sometimes it works too well.
Wow.
That's the
That's
summary.
that's so interesting. I'm definitely
Mhm.
gonna go on a deep dive on that
Yeah,
after.
that's
Do you
cool.
think that like in the future that GLP-1s could be used for like other like dopamine dysregulation diseases like addiction? You talked about like gambling, like all of those other things. Do you think
Yeah.
possibly like it could be studied for those
Oh
things?
yeah, it's being studied. There was a randomized trial that came out of Chapel Hill, my alma mater, that just came out. It was only 1 milligram of the semaglutide, and I think tirzepatide is going to be better, just like it is for weight. So yes, it's being studied. I I would bet the farm that if it's not approved for it, we'll at least see it used a lot off label. I know I have a bunch
Wow.
of addiction doctor friends that are like, yeah, we're already doing it. I'm like, yeah, I assume
Wow.
so. Yeah, it's
Interesting.
now you got to be careful. Let's say you have a patient with alcohol abuse, and
Right.
let's say that they're like borderline underweight because they're malnourished.
Right.
You got to be careful because if you give them this medicine, you don't want them to lose more weight. Now,
Yeah.
Mhm.
hopefully, that turns into them just stopping the alcohol. There's not enough suppression to stop food, so then they start eating more food, whatever. So
Mm.
anyway, that would be my concern. But like, things
Mhm.
like gambling and whatever, sex addiction, all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
Uh, I have some friends that are like, hey, yeah, I think I might have some sex addiction. Do you think I should use this medicine? I'm like, man, I'm not going to prescribe it to you, but like, I don't know, you might want to look into that type of thing,
Yeah.
Mhm.
stuff like that. So, yeah, I do think it's going to be studied.
That's so interesting. In terms of candidates for these medications, especially so here in Toronto, you'll hear people say that they couldn't get it prescribed because they're not type 2 diabetic. I'm thinking more of like Ozempic, for example, or they just don't qualify, they have to pay for it. Who else is a good candidate for these medications, though, aside from someone with obesity or with type 2 diabetes? Like, What about someone who has a lot of food noise or binge eating but is not obese? Would that still be applicable to them?
Yeah, so it would be off label.
Okay.
I get patients messaging all the time, and I'm like, look, like I will say, there's a lot of people that don't meet the BMI criteria of obesity,
Right.
but like when you dig down deep and you look at their body fat and you look at
Mhm.
some of their labs, they probably have it brewing. That's why we're getting away from the definition of obesity being like strictly BMI centric, anthropomorphic, or whatever you want to call it. So I don't prescribe it for just people that just have a high amount of food noise. I'm like, probably just need to eat more. Like we should probably work on non uh, pharmaceutical things here, because it just hasn't been studied in that population yet. I don't want to cause more harm
Fair.
than what is necessary.
Mhm. That's a good point. How do you respond to critics or people online who say that GLP-1s are the easy way out when it comes to weight loss?
Yeah, I talk about the kind of the disease and the biology of obesity. I'd be like, okay, well, you know, somebody with hypertension, if they're taking a blood pressure medicine, is that the easy way out?
Yeah.
Somebody that had a heart attack, they put a stent in, and now they have to take a statin and aspirin or whatever else. Is that taking the easy way out? And they're like, yeah, but obesity was a choice. I'm like, yeah, we can start going into these circular logics. Like the bottom line is that it's biological in nature, and we got to treat it
Mhm.
as such. Um, and then, okay, like, look, if you want to call it the easy way out, all right, then why don't you take a horse and carriage instead of driving the car? Why don't you then use a telegraph instead of using your iPhone? Like, whatever. Like, we have technology. It's like, let's not live in the past. That it's a form of weight bias. And
Mhm.
I don't get super mad at it, because I had it before. I understand why they had it.
Mhm.
Mhm.
It's funny too, because it's the same people who say this are the people who, especially in the wellness space, are like, oh, what about nature's Ozempic and
Yeah,
fat burners? And it's like, okay, so you're going to take something that's unregulated
exactly.
and useless
Yeah.
Yep,
versus something that we know works and can
Mhm.
change someone's life and the trajectory of their health long
that's right.
term.
That's
Yeah.
exactly right. Yeah.
It's interesting. Before we get into the lifestyle diet piece alongside the medications, what are the side effects that people should look out for with these medications?
Yeah, number one is nausea. You see it in most people. It'll be a mild to moderate amount of nausea. It goes away for most people. Some rarely, not commonly, you see a moderate to severe nausea. We try to give dietary lifestyle modification to help minimize that. Things like smaller meals, lighter meals, obvious things like don't go out and eat. Don't try to eat a whole pizza. Don't eat burgers, fries, wings, and that type of thing. Very, like, yeah, no, that stuff's not going to be good for weight loss anyway. But people try to stress test it a little bit, and it's the heavier fat meals that like will sit in your stomach that
Mm.
increase that
Right.
risk of nausea. And people are like, why did I do that? I'm like, well, you learned now, but so that type of thing. And then we have anti-nausea medicines if needed. Again, common but mild, goes away for most, sometimes moderate to severe. But you do want to monitor. Don't go up in the dose if they're having a severe or moderate severe amount of nausea, because they'll get worse.
Mm,
Next, you see constipation. That that doesn't go away, so you have to try to battle it through dietary modification, increased fiber,
mhm.
more
Mhm.
physical activity, and fluid.
Mhm.
If that doesn't help, and again, not everybody gets constipation, but it's not one of those things that resolves over time by itself. You do have to kind of work at it. So sometimes you have to supplement with more fiber. Maybe it's Miralax, maybe it's magnesium citrate, that type of thing. But that's what we see. Reflux happens, slowing down the gastric emptying. There's more chance for the food, instead of going down into your intestines, because it's your stomach slowing down. It can uh, have an increased risk of going up through your esophagus, causing reflux. We do see that if they have a history of it. Can go away over time, but that can be really annoying, of course. Same thing,
Mhm.
dietary modifications can help there. Sometimes they need another medicine, ideally not, because we don't want to add more medicines if we don't have to. Diarrhea, you do see from time to time, usually resolves on its own, but it can just randomly come for people. They've been on the medicine
Mm,
for a while. All of a sudden, they start developing diarrhea. Kind of weird, but it generally goes away. Same thing, dietary modifications, sometimes Pepto-Bismol, sometimes they need Imodium, ideally not, and it's not usually long term, but you do see it. We do see some fatigue, anhedonia, not as common. That thing I was talking about with the kind of lower mood there. Higher risk type of stuff. People lose a lot of weight, they can develop gallstones, so we can see gallbladder attacks. Things that are fear mongering, people are like thyroid cancer, there's a black box warning. I'm like, well, it turns out that those were in rodents. Rodents have different receptors on their thyroid cells, and we don't. So, so yeah, it doesn't seem to be an issue in humans, but we keep monitoring just in case. Pancreatitis, because they work on the pancreas. People are worried about that. Doesn't seem to be any different from placebo when you look at big, large trials. So that's good. Now, I have seen pancreatitis, though, and a lot of times it comes from a gallstone, because you can get gallstone pancreatitis where the gallstone gets out and blocks the little ducts there. Once in a while, you see an idiopathic pancreatitis. Again, it's not different from placebo. However, we do see it in the clinical world. So it's like, oh, I don't know. You can get pancreatitis from medicines. It just sometimes your body reacts differently. So again, it's rare, it's super rare, but it can happen. And you don't want to mess around with pancreatitis.
No.
Pancreatic cancer, again, that doesn't seem to be any different from placebo. And those are kind of the main ones. There, people talk about blindness. There's a specific ischemic attack thing that happens. That it's not known if that is actually a risk or not. But biological plausibility, where your blood pressure can go lower at night and there's not enough blood flowing, and potentially can cause an issue there. But like, again, it's extremely rare. People talk about gastroparesis. Well, the medicine does slow down your gastric emptying. I've never seen it in any trial. I've never seen it in any patients where it's permanent. You see cases out there and people are trying to sue. I've never seen it to where their gastric emptying does not go back to normal after stopping the medicine. Doesn't mean it doesn't happen, but if it does happen, it would be extremely rare. Hasn't been seen in any of the trials, at least not reported. So unless somebody's lying, I don't know.
Okay, that's good to know. I feel like a lot of these side effects are very manageable, right? Like we would see them with a lot of other medications too.
Yeah, like so for the indicated population for which they are indicated, and we know the benefits are just huge. The benefits far outweigh the risks. It's really where you start going on into off-label where we don't really know the benefits. Then if we don't know the benefits, or if there are very few benefits other than small amounts of vanity weight loss, then there's only a risk of those risks. So then that's where you start, like, why did I take that? I had this issue. Well, you probably shouldn't have taken it, type of thing.
Yeah, totally. When it comes to the conversation around lifestyle and diet, and specifically like dietary changes that we're making for someone who is taking a GLP-1, what does that look like? Is it different than the advice we would give to someone who wants to lose weight and they're not on these medications?
Yeah, it's not that much different. The difference would be, trying to minimize the nausea, trying to minimize the constipation, but it's very similar. And yeah, sometimes instead of like, maybe you can do well on 2 to 3 bigger meals per day, maybe smaller meals just because of the nausea factor. But like, it's very similar. Focus on the protein, focus on fibrous, satiating, filling foods. Like it's very similar. We want people to strength train regardless of whether they're doing this or not. So like, I see a lot of people doing a lot of marketing around like, we got the secret for your lifestyle for the GLP-1. Well, it's kind of similar, but we're going to market it that way. And I don't blame them. I think it's fine because we need people to do lifestyle, but it's very similar.
Yeah. Okay. Because of course now on the internet, there's like these paid for GLP-1 nutrition plans and all the things.
They're jumping on the bandwagon. I can't blame them, but it's kind of like, okay, the supplements and all the stuff that you see that are like GLP-1. I'm like, okay, come on. It's a fiber supplement. That's literally nothing.
Oh gosh. There's also a big focus right now, especially on things like food additives and ultra processed foods, which is kind of a trendy term nowadays, and them being a driver of obesity. And now, with everything going on in the US, we are seeing the focus on things like food dyes, and we're banning certain chemicals in foods. Do you think that these things play a role in obesity?
They might play a role, but very small. Well, ultra processed foods, by yes, absolutely play a role. It's the
Yeah.
small little things like food dyes. Like if I'm being honest, is it possible that the way something looks might be more enticing because of the way the food dye is more vibrant or whatever?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe. But
Mm-hmm.
in terms of like, it would be more like taste and how it would bypass your usual satiety signals that you would have or
Right.
reward signals, like making you want it a little bit more. I don't think food dyes, I'm not aware of anything about food dyes that would do that. So I'm always like, well, whatever. If people want to remove food dyes, I don't really care. There's maybe some data with, hyperactivity and things like that, whatever. I don't even care. I'm always like, though, hey, maybe we need to focus on like the bigger rocks and the lower hanging fruit of chronic disease, which is related to more of obesity. But ultra processed foods, I mean, I don't know how they're going to get rid of
Mm-hmm.
those exactly. It's going to
Yeah.
be pretty tough to
Mhm.
do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
With the ultra processed foods, is it more the conversation of like these are high calorie and low satiation, like that sort of thing, and that's why? Or is it because there's something in it that's making it addictive? Because I think
Yeah,
that's sometimes the conversation.
this is all of Dr. Kevin Hall. He's at the NIH. This is like his research, and he's my friend. We chat almost daily, and uh, he'd be the one to discuss. But
Hmm.
from my clinician standpoint, whatever it is about them, people are overeating them for
Mhm.
whatever reason, and they're higher calorie. So like I always say, like, because everybody's like, well, is it really? Is it the energy density? Is it the mouth feel of these? Is it they're
Right.
whatever it is? They're high calorie, easily overeaten, yummy
Hmm.
foods. Like that's how I describe them. Like I don't really care what it is about them. It's kind of interesting from a scientific standpoint. And that's what they're
Hmm.
trying to study. Um, he actually, this was the big thing. If you saw the news recently, it was he was his study that came out was recently was censored. They didn't make a big deal about it because it was looking at the dopamine responses. They found that these like ultra processed foods, at least they used milkshakes, didn't seem to have the same dopamine responses as drugs. And so that was a big deal because everybody says, oh, these foods are like drugs. And
Mhm.
it's like, to the level of granularity of the amount, the way they powered it was looking at, you'd have to find levels similar to drugs. That's
Hmm.
my layman's term of way of explaining it. And they didn't see it. So these foods are probably not doing it through the dopamine system the same way that drugs are doing it.
Hmm.
We know that they're addictive, like, though, whether we call them addictive or not, people have struggled not eating them. I always talk about like Pringles or kettle chips. I love kettle chips. They're
So
so
good.
crunchy and oily and tasty and salty and starchy, and like or like tortilla chips with a hint of lime. Like now, not
Hmm.
only is it just like a tortilla chip's really good, it's kind of like starchy and salty and good and crunchy. Now they added a little bit of lime, and I'm like, Jesus, this is good. So like, you know what I mean? So like,
Yeah.
I like, honestly, we can look at some mechanisms, and I'm glad there's scientists like Kevin doing it. But I'm like, we can just say what it is. It's just these things taste really good, and we want to keep eating them. Like whatever.
Yeah.
You don't want to keep eating more broccoli. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
We
You can
do
only
it
eat
because
so
we
much.
know. Yeah, like I'm done with this.
Exactly. Is it kind of the same conversation when it comes to like artificial sugars, like increasing dopamine or some sort of system there? Because I know a lot of people talk about these increasing appetite, like sucralose and aspartame. Should we be concerned about these, or moderation is okay for these as well?
I love artificial sweeteners, and not just, if you don't
Same.
eat them or don't use them, I wouldn't go and start consuming them.
Right.
Yeah.
You use them as a way to replace the energy, the sugar laden different versions of them. So like soda, everybody's like, well, if you're going to drink soda, just drink regular because the diet soda is
Yeah.
terrible for you. I'm like, well, actually, the regular soda comes with 40 grams of pure carbohydrate from sugar, whereas the diet soda, you're not going to get that. Sure, it's only 100, whatever, 60 calories, and maybe if you're just having one as a treat once in a while, who cares if based on that. But if you're drinking, like, I have patients that drink like 6 of them per day, and you're like, whoa, that's a problem. So imagine dropping 6 of those per day and going to diet soda. You're telling me that it's better for them to drink the regular soda than all of a sudden dropping like 800 calories worth of pure sugar soda? Like, no, they sometimes put their diabetes into type 2 diabetes into remission and lose 20 pounds and things like that. So there was a recent study looking at, looks like, oh, maybe these artificial sweeteners do affect our brain levels in satiety and all this type of stuff. But when you start comparing it to water, they've done randomized control trials comparing it even to water, and sometimes it actually, diet soda beats water. And the thought is that maybe the person just needed something a little bit sweet to hold them at bay, and it gave it to them without the caloric load. And then people before would say, well, but if they're getting the sweetness without the caloric load, maybe they're going to go seek it later. Well, that doesn't actually happen. They thought it might, but when you look at it, it looks like people lose weight when replacing the sugar sweetened beverages with artificially sweetened beverages. People are like, well, what about the observational trials showing increased risks of metabolic syndrome and stroke later? It's like, look, I don't know. We have randomized controlled trials showing improved cardiometabolic markers, so it doesn't really make sense from a biological standpoint. People are like, well, why don't you just drink water? I'm like, sure, fine, go drink water. I don't really care, but like, don't tell people to drink regular soda instead of diet soda when we know that if you're going to do, if you're not going to drink water, but you will swap with diet soda, do the diet soda. It's better. It just doesn't even make any sense. And people say it the other way.
So we're pro Diet Coke here.
Yeah, I hope so. Otherwise, I'm going to get kicked off of here.
Oh my gosh. It's funny though, the stigma around it. I was on a flight recently, and like, my flight drink is always Diet Coke, like it has to be. But I took a picture of what I was doing on the flight, and I moved the Diet Coke out of the picture because I didn't want to deal with the lashback of it.
Yeah. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to just lean into it. So I make funny memes and people just lose their mind. And so now I make memes about people losing their mind, and then they still lose their mind every time I make fun of it. I mean, and I restrict people, and it's always the same people. I'm like, this person hate follows me because like they think that they're pulling one on me, but I'm like, they don't know that they're just yelling into the void. And I'm like, you're just restricted. And it's the same like group of like 5 people. I'm like, you follow me just to say something like nasty every day, and
oh my gosh.
And I'm always like, okay, well, God, what kind of life do they have? Yeah, and it's artificial sweeteners for some reason.
There's an idea in the wellness space that some foods can have a similar effect to GLP-1 agonists, like fiber-rich foods. They work the same way, people will say. How do you respond to this kind of talk?
I just show them the whole, GLP-1, our own endogenous GLP-1s broken down within a minute or two. Yeah. We have medicines that stop the breakdown. They're called DPP-4 inhibitors, dipeptidyl peptidase 4. It's the enzyme that breaks it down quickly. We can block it and increase levels of GLP-1 or our own levels up to 200 to 300%, and they don't result in any weight loss. They do help with blood sugar though. Yeah. So if you have an effect, like eating fiber is good. Eating some of these other things are good, but probably it's not the GLP-1 release that's good. But if they help you feel satiated and help you eat fewer calories and they're otherwise healthy, go for it. But everybody's trying to jump on the bandwagon and try to make $1, it seems.
Yeah.
Right.
You are also a weightlifter. You talked a little bit about that. You have a podcast that's called Docs Who Lift. When patients are taking these medications, how important is muscle mass preservation? We know that in general, strength training is great for you. In people who are losing weight versus people who are losing weight on medications, is there any difference between the importance of weight training?
Yeah, we don't have any randomized trials yet. Might be working on one, but because we don't know, it's put on one group, standard care, just whatever, go walk or whatever, versus, hey, in this group, we're going to make sure that they lift weights and we're going to supervise them and see what happens and look at the differences between them. However, anecdotally, clinically, we're publishing a case series here soon and doing a prospective study on this. We can pretty much minimize resolve that lean mass or fat-free mass loss that you see with these medicines. And it doesn't seem to be any different from just any type of calorie deficit way of losing weight. There was a signal in the semaglutide trials where maybe it's a little bit more, but like it doesn't really make sense. It might be fluid, because fluid can look like fat-free mass. The DEXA scans can't tell a difference between it. So I strongly encourage it. I don't force my patients to, because you can't force them to do anything. But I strongly encourage it with patients. And the other thing is, they don't know this yet. Patients don't know, but they're looking for a certain look. Like, yes, they want to improve their health. Everybody wants to improve their health, but they want a certain function and they want a certain look. They'll go, I want to hit 150 pounds because that's the way I was in college and I looked a certain way. And then they'll get to that weight and they're like, I don't like the way I look. And I'm like, yeah, it was never the number on the scale. It was you're looking for a certain shape, and that requires a certain amount of muscle. And so then they go, oh crap, and then they start doing it. But most of the time I try to prevent that and try to get them going earlier. So
Amazing. What is one myth that you see on the online space that you want to debunk once and for all? If you could pick just one.
One myth is probably, I just posted about this on Threads and people lost their mind. Threads is such a weird platform too. I don't even understand it. Like, I don't know where these people come from. I know that they don't follow me on Instagram because they come and just talk trash. And actually on Threads, most people don't usually respond. I always quote and then respond, and I make I look at their profile, look into them, and I go, oh, okay. Amanda, the tattoo artist, thank you for your knowledge on, and people lose their mind and be like, what kind of doctor are you? You're so unprofessional. I'm like, oh, they can talk shit to me and I can't talk back. Like, I can't, and that's illegal. Like, screw you guys. So then anyway, it's keto. It's a ketogenic diet that people can't lose weight while eating carbohydrates. And they'll be like, well, what about insulin resistance? I'm like, take somebody with insulin resistance, type 2 diabetes, and put them on 1,000 calorie, pretty much all carbohydrate diet. They will lose weight. It's not possible. And they'll be like, no, but the insulin will stop them from losing weight because its effects on lipolysis. And I have to go through the cellular explanation of why that doesn't make any sense. And this all stems back to people like Gary Taubes and these other people in the earlier 2007, his book came out. Actually, he was talking shit to me back on Twitter just a couple days ago because I made a post. And I'm like, Gary, God, it's a whole thing. He's so mad. But I was like, look, I have a lot of patients who believe they can't eat carbs. Yeah. And it's just not true. We have metabolic ward data. Like, those are 2-week-long studies. And I'm like, they're trying to say that the carbohydrate's somehow inherently fattening, and it's not true. If they want to talk about satiety signals, fine. But it's just not true that they can't lose weight while eating carbs. So that's the myth. I'm like, you can lose weight and eat carbohydrates, whether you're satiated or not and can continue. That's another discussion. But there's no mechanism about carbohydrates that stops them from losing weight. That's the gist.
And when people say, well, how come when I went keto, I lost all this weight? Your response is?
I always say, you ate fewer calories. And you'll be like, well, but that's the point. I didn't have to count calories. I'm like, that's fine. Yeah. But it wasn't something about the carbohydrate inherently that was fattening. Yeah, that's the gist.
Totally. Love it. Okay, Dr. Nadolsky, at the end of every episode, we do something called rapid fire, where we like to do, it's myth debunking. So we're going to say a statement that we see quite often in the online space, and you're going to say myth, truth, or it depends.
All right.
Okay, we have 6. Are you ready to go?
Yep.
All right. The first one is that BMI is an accurate measurement of health.
Myth.
Artificial sweeteners are worse than sugar for obesity management.
Myth.
GLP-1 agonists need to be taken for life.
Depends.
Okay. Sugar is as addictive as cocaine.
Myth.
GLP-1s are just Band-Aids.
Myth.
Everyone should track their food if they want to lose weight.
Myth.
All right. That was our most
That was the quickest. The quickest one we've ever done.
Oh, I've made memes about every single one of those things.
Perfect.
So I had them ready.
Vic did that on purpose. She was like, which ones can we do here? Well, Dr. Nadolsky, thank you so much for coming on today. We appreciate your time so much. We know you're super busy, so we appreciate you coming on today. Can you just let our audience know where they can find you, learn from you, your online clinic as well, your podcast, everything?
Yep. Podcast is Docs Who Lift. I have an Instagram, Dr. Nadolsky, DrNadolsky. I'm on TikTok as well. I don't do as much there. You can see me on Twitter and Facebook as well. YouTube, doing some stuff there. Clinic is joinvineyard.com, like an actual vineyard, even though we're not doing alcohol or anything like that.
Perfect. And you're on Threads too, right?
I am on Threads. Don't talk crap to me because I will hit back hard.
Great. Okay, thank you so much again.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.